Yo, 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 yo. Happy Thursday, Sis Squad.
Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Ha. Let's get it started in here. And
Hey, hey, hey. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What's up, Sis Squad? My name is Christine. I am your Joe Schmo when it comes to sports knowledge. I am here to ask all the questions that you would otherwise have at home.
And I am Sarah, your self-proclaimed sports expert. I am here to hopefully answer all of the questions that you and Christine have so that we can teach you everything that you need to know about sports so that you can enjoy them just as much as Christine and I do. So first things first, Christine, I know we've talked a little bit about the NBA playoffs and just kind of, I think I talked a few weeks back about the play-in tournament, but we didn't really talk as a whole about the NBA playoffs, and they are coming up. So
yeah, they're super soon. So let's go ahead and talk about them. So what is it? What are the NBA playoffs?
Yeah, so the NBA playoffs, it's the postseason for the National Basketball Association, also called the NBA, to determine which team will win the NBA title or the championship. And this year is a little bit different because the association, the NBA, has introduced a play-in tournament.
What is a play-in tournament?
Yeah, so it expands the number of teams that makes the playoffs from 8, which is historically how many teams make the playoffs each year, and they've expanded it to 10 teams. So there will still only be 8 core teams that make the playoffs, very similar to, remember my Live Long and Prosper with the play-in tournament?
This seed plays this seed, and the winner of this seed plays this seed, and then they
get entered into the core bracket. It's similar. So there will still be 8 teams in the core bracket of the playoffs, but there will be 10 teams that have the opportunity to claim their spots in the core 8 bracket of the playoffs, if that makes sense.
How are the Hornets looking this year? I mean, are we making our way into these playoff games? Or excuse me, into the play-in tournament?
Yes. So as of yesterday, with the Bulls loss, the Hornets have claimed their spot in one of the play-in spots. So we don't have only teams 1 through 6 that are ranked 1 through 6 on the East and the West have a guaranteed spot in the playoffs. So teams 7 through 10 are playing in the play-in tournament. So the Hornets have guaranteed a spot in that play-in tournament. We just won't know because there's still a few games left where in the play-in tournament they're going to shake out, but we for sure have a chance to make the playoffs.
Oh, let's go Hornets. Don't disappoint.
I know.
But why is there a play-in tournament this year? This is a new thing.
Yes, it is a new thing. It's the first year that they're doing it, and it's become a very big talking point, let's just say.
I feel like players are probably not very happy about it. That's what best guess.
There's the one who's been most outspoken about it is LeBron.
Yeah, I could have guessed that. Cannot roll our eyes enough.
He actually said that whoever came up with the play-in tournament should be fired, but whatever. He's also the person I always use the term, you tickle him with a feather and he falls down and he pretends like he breaks every bone anytime that anybody ever touches him. It's ridiculous. But anyway, yes, LeBron has complained about it. And I think there are some other players that are seriously, we have to play more basketball. They already really didn't have that much of a break after COVID, their COVID season last year. And so now it's just going to be more basketball, but more basketball for them means more basketball for us.
Right. So I was going to say for fans, it's great.
It is. So there's a few different reasons why they did the play-in tournament, a few official, a few unofficial reasons, right? So to expand the number of teams to have a chance to make the playoffs. So historically, like I said, only the top 8 teams on the East and the West make the playoffs. This year it's expanded to 10 with that play-in tournament, which I'll explain in a little bit. 2, to be more exciting. And then last is to prevent teams from sitting their players and tanking at the end of the season. So
sit their players.
Right.
Just
So like
because
if
they
you've
don't want
ever
them to
been
be
to a
hurt.
big game and one of the players that you were there to see is just resting and isn't playing, it's like a
I
huge
hate that.
disappointment. Yes.
I hate that.
It's a huge disappointment. So the NBA is trying to avoid this, right? So back to your question, why would the good players sit at the end or sit on the bench at the end of the season and tank, right? So this is kind of course, a very convoluted answer. And so it's 2 parts, it's really 3 parts. But anyways, previous years with the standard playoff setup without the play-in tournament, teams sitting in the 5 spot are going to be playing the 4 spot, right? And the 4 spot, 1 through 4 has home court advantage. So if you are in the 5 spot and your coach is like, the team that's in the 4 spot actually plays us better than the team that's in the 3 spot, maybe we should just sit and tank and lose a couple of games
Because
and
you're already guaranteed a spot.
because you're basically guaranteed a spot. That's right. Previously, if you were the 1 through 8 team or better, or 8 team or better, you would guarantee your spot in the playoffs. So if your coach thought for whatever reason that it would be a better matchup for your team to play the 3 seed instead of the 4 seed, you may see some players and some teams tank at the end of the season because they want to play, a team that would be a better match for them. So the second reason,
whenever you say better match, though, are we thinking like their better match is a team that they believe they can beat?
yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you for explaining that. Yeah. So a better match, like I don't necessarily want to go up against Travis in a basketball game because he's going to beat me. Well, not anymore. Not right now because he's injured.
Tore
But
his ACL.
he tore
Womp
his
womp.
ACL. Womp womp. Anyway, but normally I wouldn't want to play against him, right? Because he's better than I am. But you,
I was gonna say you probably wouldn't play against me either. I'm pretty good. I mean, you'd lose, but I'm willing to take you up on that.
it'd be a better matchup for me. It would be a better matchup for me. But let's just say you might have played teams better and had a better record. So maybe you were a little bit higher in the rankings than Travis was, right? That was probably a terrible example. But that's why teams will tank because they are like, okay, we've got some cushion here. We can't get home court advantage. Maybe we can lose a few games and play a team that would be better suited for us to beat, right? So that's the first reason. The second reason is if you are sitting in the 11 or 12 spot historically, like those teams will tank so they can have a better chance at a better draft pick in next year.
But they're not in the playoffs or
historically because only 1 through 8. But this year, because they've expanded it to 10 teams, the 11 and the 12 spots are going to be competing and fighting tooth and nail to get that 10 seed.
Right, because now it's expanded to 10 teams. So there are going to be 10 teams in the playoffs this year. So if you're in the 11th or 12th spot, you guys are going to be battling each other for that 10th spot.
Right. Well, you're going to be battling for the 10th spot, which is a guaranteed spot in the play-in tournament, not necessarily in the playoffs.
Oh, cheese and rice. Okay, so the play-in tournament is how many games?
So the play-in tournament is 6 games total for 4 spots in the playoffs. So there's 3 games in the East and there's 3 games in the West. Okay.
That seems like a lot.
I guess it
makes sense. The best of 3.
Setup for the play-in game is okay. So again, seeds 1 through 6 are guaranteed a spot in the playoffs. In the East and the West. So only 12 teams this year are guaranteed a spot in the playoffs.
So then 8 to 12 play each other in the play-in games?
7 through 10 play each other in the play-in games.
Okay, and then 11 and 12 fight to play in the play-in games.
11 and 12 are just like, all right, we got to turn the gas on. It's our last chance to potentially make the playoffs. We have a chance here. Whereas historically, they were way too far away from that 8 spot, right? to
Yes,
make the
yes,
playoffs,
yes.
but now it's much more attainable. So they could say, let's turn the Jets on, let's turn the gas on, whatever analogy you want to use, get in that 10 spot. We may be able to win a couple of games and guarantee our spot in the core 8 teams that are in the playoffs.
I think I get it.
Yay. Okay. So let me explain how the play-in tournament works. So we explained why they have a play-in tournament, right? So basically to expand the number of teams to have a chance to make the playoffs, to be more exciting, and last, to prevent the teams from sitting their players and tanking at the end of the season by expanding that number, and from not allowing the teams that might previously in previous years had a guaranteed spot. Nobody wants to drop below that 6th spot because that means they would have to play in the play-in tournament, which doesn't guarantee them a spot in the playoffs. So they've made it much more exciting for us. I'm sure their TV ratings and their ticket sales are going to be going all the way through the roof. But the play-in tournament is new this year. So it is a little bit confusing, which I know just the things that I talked to you about earlier have been a little bit confusing. So let me explain how the play-in tournament works.
Yes.
So the play-in tournament are single games. So the 7th seed on the East and the 7th and the 8th seed on the East will play each other, right?
Okay.
So this is for the East and the West. That'll be the easiest way to explain it. So when I say 7 and 8 seed, I'm talking the 7 and 8 seed on the East and the 7 and 8 seed on the West. Because remember, the teams in the NBA are divided into 2 conferences, East and West, right?
Right.
Okay. And then the winner of the East and the winner of the West will play each other in the championship game. So for now, you just need to look at the teams as 2 conferences, East and West, right? So the 7 and 8 seed from both the East and the West play each other. They play each other.
Fingers up and ready.
Yes. Okay. This is the 7 and 8. This is the 7 and 8. This is the East. This is the West. Okay. The winner. I know, right? So I was like, wait a second. Okay. The winner of the 7 versus 8 game gets entered into the core playoff bracket.
So they're in the playoffs.
They're in the playoffs. The winner of the 7 versus 8, the winner gets entered in as the 7 seed.
Okay. And then the loser plays.
The loser plays the winner of the 9 versus 10 game. So
okay. And then whoever wins that game.
Okay. So 7 versus 8 play each other. 9 versus 10 play each other.
Right.
Okay. The winner of this game of the 7 versus 8 gets entered into the playoffs as the 7 seed. Okay. The 9 versus 10, these 2 play each other, and the loser goes home.
Oh, bummer. So who does the
winner plays the loser of the 7 versus 8 game, and I can't get my fingers to touch.
Oh, so the losers play each other.
No.
Wait a second. Hold on.
Okay.
So the 7th and 8th seed
play each other. 9 and 10
the winner of the 7th and 8th seed goes to the playoffs as the 7th seed.
Yes.
The loser of the 7th and 8th seed plays the winner of the 9 and 10 seed. And the loser of the 9 and 10 seed, bye-bye.
Yes.
You out. Okay.
And now,
light bulb.
We've got this game, which is the loser of the 7 and 8 game and the winner of the 9 versus 10 game. They're playing each other, and whoever wins this game gets the 8th spot.
Got it. Okay. I get it. That makes sense.
Okay, good. Perfect.
I was definitely confused there for a hot second, but I get it. No, you did a good job explaining it. Maybe.
So now that we've done the play-in tournament and we have 8 teams left, right? So we've skinnied it down from 10 teams to 8 teams.
Mm-hmm.
In the East and 8 teams in the West. We've
Mm-hmm.
got a 4-round playoff bracket set up. So the first
Right.
round will have 16 teams, 8 on the East, 8 on the West. The second round will have 8 teams, 4 on the East, 4 on the West. The conference championships will have 4 teams, which will be 2 and 2. And then the finals will have 2, which will be 1 and 1.
So it's just like your normal March Madness bracket that you would otherwise see.
No, it's
Except
not.
it's smaller because you're starting at the Elite 8, right? Or I guess Elite 10 in this case.
No, 16. So it's 16 teams, which would be the Elite 8. Yes, correct. But here's the kicker. NBA playoffs, once you've entered the core NBA playoffs, teams 1 through 8 on the East and the West in the first round, you go from the 1 game, which was in the playoff games, to 7-game series.
Oh my God.
Yes, I know. Exactly.
They're like, you guys got a break last year for COVID. We are going to work your ass out. We're
Well,
going
they
to really
had the
stretch
same
you
setup
thin.
last year. It was just all in the bubble. So they didn't have
Oh,
to
okay.
travel. Yeah. So the way that it works this year, so instead of being in the bubble, which was a reminder you guys for COVID last year, all the NBA teams that made the playoffs were at the World of Sports in Disney World. They quarantined themselves and they played the entire playoff series and the NBA finals in the bubble. So we're kind of back to normal this year, obviously with the addition of the play-in tournament. And they are back to traveling, right? So
When do they do best of 7 again?
once the core 8 teams on the East and the West are determined,
Okay.
that's when the
So they're
7-game
playing
series starts.
a lot of basketball.
Yes, a lot of basketball, but a lot of very exciting basketball. So the way that it works is okay. So once the core 8 teams are designated for the playoffs, the worst team plays the best team. So the 8 seed plays the 1, 7 plays the 2, 6 plays the 3, and 5 plays the 4. And remember, that's both on the East side and the West side. So 16 total teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
Playing in 8 total matchups, 4 on the East, 4 on the West. So let's just take the 8 versus 1 game or series as an example.
Why do they do it like that?
Why
do they do it where the best team plays the worst team?
Well, because that's just, I mean, the best
set it
team
up?
has designated itself as the best team in the NBA, and they have a better chance at beating the worst team in the playoffs in the NBA. So it's just like, anything else. Like the best team in the NFL gets a bye, right? Why do they do that? It's because it's earned.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
So the 8 spot plays the 1 spot, right? So let's just take that as an example because this will run true for the rest of the games in the playoffs too, right? The 7 versus 2, 6 versus 3, 5 versus 4. So the higher seed has home court advantage, which if you say the words home court advantage, you think, okay, all 7 games are going to be at the higher seeds home court, but that's not the case. What it means is of those 7 games, 4 of them will be at the higher seeds court. 3 of them will be at the lower seeds court. So the 8 versus 1 series, remember it's a 7-game series. It'll go 2 at the 1 seed, 2 at the 8 seed, 1 at the 1 seed, 1 at the 8 seed, 1 at the 1 seed. So the first 2 games.
So much traveling.
I know. And the last game are at the higher seeds court.
And whenever you say higher seed, you mean the
actual lower seed. You're right.
You mean actual lower number.
Sorry, the lower number. Yes. When I say higher seed, I mean it's in this case, yes, it's a lower number. That's right. So the number one is the best.
8 would be the higher seed.
8 would be the worst. 8 would be the worst. Yes.
Yeah.
Or in this case, the terminology that I'm using, which is very confusing, would be the lower seed. So
yes, lower seed.
That's very confusing. But yes, 8 would be the worst team to make the NBA playoffs, and they will be playing number 1, who is the best team to make the NBA playoffs. And they will play 2 at 1's court, 2 at 8 court, 1 at 1, 1 at 8, 1 at 1.
So exhausting. Just
That
imagine
means
having to travel back and forth, play games, get back on an airplane, travel back to their court, play a game, travel back to home
yes,
court. It's
I
just so
know.
tiring.
It
But
is. And they
it's
usually have like a day in between for like rest. So like
yeah.
these series last like a week and a half up to 2 weeks. Or if one team wins, so it's the best to or the first to 4 games wins the series. So sometimes it doesn't even need to go all 7 games.
Right.
Sometimes if the 1 seed comes out and says, to hell with you, 8 seed, we're going to win the first 4 games, the 2 games that we have at home and 2 games at your court, that series is over. And then that team who's moving on gets a break.
Yeah, that's so nice. And it's probably much like needed at that point.
Yes, exactly. They get a break until the next the next playoff series starts.
Right. So, okay. We've kind of broken down playing games in the NBA playoffs and seeds too.
Yep.
So the worst team plays the best team in the beginning of the NBA playoffs. So when does all of this begin? When do the play-in games start?
Yes. So the play-in tournament starts on May 18th, and it's only 3 days. It's the 18th and 19th, well, 4 days. The 18th and 19th, the 20th and the 21st.
Okay.
And then the
That's
actual
soon.
It's very soon. I know. What day is today?
Today
The
is the
12th.
12th.
Yeah, so 6 days from
6
today.
days.
So it starts next week, which is why I wanted to talk to you about it, you guys about it, so that you can be excited as I am about it, because this is the first time it's ever happening. And it's going to be so exciting to see, because these teams are going to be so scrappy. It's going to be like the best NBA basketball that you've ever watched.
Especially if you're a Hornets fan, because the Hornets are now officially in the play-in game. So
Yes.
I personally am super stoked to see my team
Yes.
fighting for a chance to be in the playoffs.
Exactly. And then from there, Christine, like we said, depending on who wins the play-in games will depend on who actually makes the actual playoffs. And the actual playoffs start on May 22nd, and then they run for 2 months through July 22nd.
God, 2 months seems like a long time. I mean,
know.
but it makes sense whenever you think about it. Each series is 7 games
Yep.
and 2 weeks long.
And
So-
there's 4, remember, they go from 16 teams down to 2 teams in 4 different parts
Right.
of the tournament.
Right.
So, I mean, however many games that is, each team could potentially play 28 games.
That's nuts. But it's no wonder they get paid so much. I think they get paid. I think they're the second top paid sports athlete.
Yeah, sports athlete. That's right. Number 1 would be baseball.
Number 1 would, they're the number 2
or soccer.
Most paid sports athletes, because number 1 is baseball.
Oh,
there's
very
so many.
Yeah.
So many games, and the season's a lot longer. But that pretty much wraps up everything with NBA playoffs and the play-in games. And we do have a couple current events to run down with you guys. And we have a few that are obviously sports related, but the one that I really want to bring up first is Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck, you guys. Bennifer is back, and I'm here for it. And I do believe, to be honest, I think this is like a PR stunt. Like,
I think it's a rebound is all I think it is.
It's like, I've already had a connection with you, and we're both newly single. Let's just jet set all around the world together.
Yeah. And as a reminder, you guys, just to link this back to something sports related so that we don't lose you, A-Rod and J-Lo just broke up. Remember, they just went to Splitsville, and A-Rod used to play baseball. So that's kind of how we're equating this to sports. Yeah. But now, just to update you on J-Lo's life, I think Alex Rodriguez has been home playing Coldplay, videoing old pictures of him and J-Lo, whereas J-Lo's just like, bye, see ya. I'm going to
get it to yourself, A-Rod.
With
you
Ben Affleck.
Did it to yourself. But so Bennifer is back. We'll see how long this goes on for. I honestly can't imagine it's going to last that long, but we shall see. Second in news is the Kentucky Derby. So there's a cheating scandal going on with the winner of the Kentucky Derby. Medina Spirit is his name. And after the race, he tested positive for betamethasone, which is an anti-inflammatory. And in all fairness, these horses, like an anti-inflammatory is pretty much like whenever you wake up and have a headache and you take an ibuprofen, right? Like it just
Okay.
like it it's a pain reliever. So these horses are like worked to the ground, right? They train so often, they're constantly racing and their muscles get sore. So in his defense, I mean, to have a little bit of anti-inflammatory on board, like to me makes total sense. But the fact that the anti-inflammatory had betamethasone in it, which I believe is a steroid, and he came
Mhm.
back positive for that, it's just not allowed.
Yeah. And the
So
trainer has a pretty bad history with like
cheating.
previous horses, and he has like really crazy stories that are associated with it. So I would feel really bad for the horse. I mean, you would obviously, it's the horse doesn't inject himself, the trainer does, right? So
Right.
horses can't take pills themselves, can't inject themselves. It's the trainer, it's the owner who's doing it. So the
Yeah,
trainer is
it's
the one who's
unfortunate.
behind it, not the horse. But they're doing what's happening now? Like, is he DQ'd or what?
So he's on his way to getting DQ'd, but they're doing more testing to see if they can come up with a second positive, just so they are absolutely certain that it's true
Yeah.
before they disqualify him. And if he is disqualified, then the runner up will be the winner.
Oh my gosh, that's so crazy. I don't even know who the runner up is. And we don't know, obviously, he's not officially DQ'd, you guys, but the even bigger news around this is sports betting, which we talked about last week, right?
I
All
know
the bets on these horses, like what does it mean now for these people who
that
bet all this money?
that is probably the first thing I thought of whenever this all went down. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a second. So all the people who bet on Medina Spirit to win and won their money, like, do they have to give that money back or what's going to happen there? We're not really sure, but we will keep you guys posted on that end whenever we find out more. In
Yes.
other news, Russell Westbrook plays in the NBA and has officially the most triple doubles of all time. He passed Oscar Robinson. And Sarah, very briefly, will you just
Yes.
explain what a triple double is?
Yes, I know we've given you guys the explanation before, but a triple double is literally as easy as I feel like it sounds more complicated than what it is, but it's 10 or more in any of the stat lines. So usually it would be 10 plus points, 10 plus assists, and 10 plus rebounds. They're not easy to get. And they're all done in the same game, right? So that's why it's called a triple double during a game. So it's a huge accomplishment. Russell Westbrook is a phenomenal player. He plays for the Wizards, so congrats to him.
Last but not least, we have Tim Tebow playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars in NFL as a tight end. Now,
Yes.
this is a huge deal, really, because Tim Tebow won back in his career whenever he played in the NFL was a quarterback.
Yes.
Then he retired,
Yep.
and now he's coming back to play for the Jacksonville Jaguars as a tight end. So my initial thought was it's all for PR reasons. It's going to bring a lot more people to watch and talk about Jacksonville, especially now that they have Trevor Lawrence as their quarterback. But
Yeah.
what was your initial thought about all
Yeah.
this?
So my initial thought is why, after all this time, which I think is kind of what everybody else has talked about, he's been out of the NFL for years.
Yeah.
And so it's not one of those situations like Rob Gronkowski where he was playing and he decided to retire and then goes and, picks up and takes a year off and then plays for the Bucks. He's been out of the NFL for, I want to say, like at least 4 or 5 years. It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while. So Urban Meyer, who is the coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, was previously a college coach and used to coach at the University of Florida, which is where Tim Tebow went to school. So they have a relationship. So it makes sense to me. I'm just curious to see how he's going to do as a tight end because, like you said, he's got a past with being a quarterback. So we'll just have to wait and see how he does.
All right, you guys. Well, that pretty much wraps up everything that you guys need to know this week. Thank you so much for listening. We love you guys so much. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our Apple Podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Toodaloo.